This week, we welcome Chen. He's the co-founder of Firewall to discuss working from home and making things secure in your home network. In our second segment, we welcome Ryan Hayes, Offensive Security Manager at RSA Security, to talk about OS Int, scraping with Python. In the security news, Cisco releases a security advisory for a telnet vulnerability in iOS XE software. Firefox 78 is out with a mysteriously empty list of security fixes. Python arbitrary file write prevention, the tar bomb. New Lucifer DDoS botnet targets Windows systems with multiple exploits. Critical Apache guacamole flaws put remote desktops at risk of hacking from chips, maybe. There's a better joke in there somewhere. The internet is too unsafe and why we need more hackers. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Are you an enterprise dissatisfied with overpriced analytics software that can't keep up with modern data? If so, then GravWell is the solution for you. GravWell is an unstructured data analytics platform for enterprises who demand total data visibility across their network. GravWell lets your security team go beyond the SIM and fuse data sources to correlate and answer questions you didn't know needed to be asked. Go to gravwell.io/Security Weekly for an unlimited data trial and gain uncompromising visibility today. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is flat networks inside the cloud and data center that allow threats to move laterally and compromise vulnerable targets. But microsegmentation using traditional firewalls is too complex and time-consuming. There's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation. Using the identity of machines and software that are communicating, Edgewise offers the strongest protection that adapts automatically to changes. Protect any application in any cloud without any changes to your network by visiting securityweekly.com/Edgewise.
Good evening. In tonight's production of Paul's Security Weekly, the part of the aging cheerleader will be performed by Mr. Jeff Mann, the part of the saucy schoolgirl by Mr. Doug White, and the part of the narrator will be performed by Mr. Paul Asadorian. Thank you and enjoy the performance.
Welcome to Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 656, recorded on July 2nd, 2020, right here in G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. To my left, they call him the Doctor, Dr. Doug. Dr. Doug White is in the house.
Yeah, I'm here again. It's been so long. I was getting the shakes.
I'm so glad you're here in studio with me.
Standing down on the street corner going like, hey, man.
We actually got to converse in person. It's a very bizarre thing.
Yeah, I know.
I showed you stuff and PP works.
He did. Yeah. I saw the PP. Yeah.
Works.
Yeah.
It worked. Definitely works. On the lines remotely, Mr. Tyler Robinson is here. Tyler, welcome.
Buenos dias, buenos dias. Glad to be back. 2 weeks is way too long.
Way too long. Mr. Jeff Mann is with us. Jeff, welcome.
Ecstatic to be back here again in 2 weeks. I concur. Way too long.
And of course, Mr. Lee Neely. You've got a port? Is that?
Yes.
Is that of the
back? I've got a port and some chocolate.
Is that a TCP variety of port or a UDP variety of port?
I definitely think there's no reliable problem, so I think it's TCP port.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's awesome. A couple of quick announcements before we get started with all the recent changes to Black Hat and DEF CON. We realize we can keep doing what we do best, and that's host virtual podcasts. I'm proud to announce Hacker Summer Camp 2020 is a Security Weekly virtual live streaming event August 3rd through the 6th. Reserve your slot today if you'd like to sponsor an interview by your company and would like to talk about your product and why it's awesome and how it's different from everyone else's with some of the hosts here at Security Weekly during that live streaming event. You can go to securityweekly.com/summercamp 2020. I'm very excited to welcome Jerry Chen. He is the founder of Firewall. Before that, he spent nearly 20 years working at Cisco Systems, where he was a senior manager and ran many projects in the security technology group, core routing group, and consumer business unit. He was also a member of the Cisco InfoSec team, focusing on data protection. Jerry, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
You guys think security fun.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. I didn't know you spent all that time at Cisco. We're going to now pepper you with... I'm trying to remember how to configure VLANs from the top of my head, and like it's not. I have to read. I can't do that anymore. It's been over like 20 years, you know? Happens.
Router on a stick, 5 minutes, go.
That's it.
It's like paddling a kayak, Paul. You just
That's right.
get right back into it.
Yes. So, Jerry, how did you get your start in information security before you came to Cisco?
I actually started with product security. So many years ago, probably I think 20 years ago, I started building very large routers. And one of the things I was in charge in is all the packet going to the what's it called? RP route processor, going to the route processor, right? So these are all the packets going to the operating system. So I was playing with that until I start to do extreme testing with these routers. And suddenly I realized it's extremely fun to look at how to secure very large routers, right? So this is my first touch with cybersecurity, and that was extremely interesting because the routers I used to work with are, I think, $2 or $3 million each, and they run cities. Later, I got into information security because it's something fun. So I started doing a lot of inside threats, so trying to take care of that and start to see how an organization or a company worked inside from a cybersecurity perspective, right? So not just making policies, but also looking at the tools, how to secure insiders, right? So the insider threat was my focus during that time. So that's also fun. It's a lot of policy work, a lot of the tools, and we actually created a bunch of tools ourselves within the company. Yeah, that's how I got started. It's definitely exciting and interesting.
That's awesome. So how did you come to kind of get interested in developing your own product and bringing it to market specifically in the home networking arena?
Yeah, interesting story. So in 2015, one day I was walking downstairs and I saw one of my kids' nanny cams start moving. So that's the moment that I said I need to do something. Like I said, I've been doing networking and security for a very long time, and having a camera start moving on me, right, it's kind of scary, right? So after I see that camera start moving, I think what I realize I can't really do anything because I have a router from ISP. I really don't know how to do ACLs on that router, right? So when the camera is moving, it means it's hacked. Right? It's not me who's controlling, somebody else was controlling it. So I spent about a day actually to take out my old Cisco router and another few hours researching, actually remember all the Cisco CLI commands to figure out how to see all the network flows, right? So if you guys know net flows, how do you see it? How do I see what this camera is doing? Because I was curious, right? I probably can unplug it, but that was not very interesting. Then after, I do see streams going out and they're going to multiple IP addresses. Either the camera was attacking other devices or it's sending video to somebody else, right? So that was the interesting moment. The first thing, like, how do I get visibility to this camera? How do I know what is it doing? And second one is actually, without unplugging it, can I fix the problem, right? So this is the second thing. Then I have to figure out how the ACL stuff works, looking at ACL ports. So this thing is complex for me, right? It's very complex for me. And I realized a lot of people have the same issue, and most of them probably don't have a Cisco router around that can do, I think that command was show IP top talkers, one of the one of the command that shows the top net flow going out and also into the router itself. So that's the moment say I have to build something simple. So powerful is definitely, but we have to build, I have to build something extremely simple such people can see what their IoT devices are doing and have some type of control to their home network. So that's how I got started. It's just this old camera sitting there for 2 years. I didn't know it even existed, and start moving. That was just the moment. It's kind of scary. This is 2015.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's interesting when I read some of the advice that people put out there for the general public. They're like, oh, well, just, make sure your firewall's locked down and doesn't accept connections from the inside. And when you were telling that story, Jerry, I was like, well, what if it was pre-owned? What if it went out and did a software update and someone compromised the software update server? What if someone put an app on my phone and it found that device and then compromised it, right? Like there's so many different attack vectors. And I feel like not very many of us monitor our home networks as closely as we do the ones we use at work.
How is your wife going to view that externally as well?
Yeah.
Like usability and external apps connecting is probably one of the biggest issues that you run into.
So I think the special thing about the home is, so when you work for a corporate, you have security policies, right? You have people who look after those security policies. You have people who's patching your software, right? Very simple things. There's nothing complex about patching software. In my case, it's pretty much just one simple camera sitting there connected. I don't know if it existed. There's no upgrade for that software. And that camera is one of the it's a pretty famous one that gets hacked very often. So that's the thing I feel is important, right? Just bring some of the common practices from enterprises or corporation to the home, right? Not the strict version, but just more something simpler, right? Visibility and control. At least you have something. If somebody hacking your stuff, you can stop it. Right? So that was our key.
Tyler and I have been working on this project, and I wanted to ask you, Jerry, and I think, Tyler, the first thing that you and I both kind of thought of was, how do I segment my home network? How do I separate family and entertainment devices? And Jerry, I don't know if you've given this some thought as to how we could use even simple segmentation to make things better in the home security-wise.
So segmentation is pretty much divide your home network into pieces, right? So you have a segment for kids, one segment for IoT devices, and one segment for work. And these are all layer 3 networks. And what's important, I think in consumer homes, say you don't want to buy anything special. Think about the guest network. So you probably have a router that has a guest network and also the main network. I've seen people done is putting IoT devices on the guest network. For example, you can put cameras on it, and your main network is your, maybe work PC or a kid's PC, right? It's a bit limited because the guest network is hard-coded, right? It means like it's just a network. You can't really put any policy on it, right? So a lot of the routers have that capability. Is underutilized. So I think that's one way that if you don't want to buy any special equipment, that's one way to segment your network. But if you're looking for more complex segmentation, we actually build a new device. I'm not sure I can show it here. It's like this little thing here, this Firewall Gold. What this box does is able to segment port level or VLAN level. And the segmentation is a bit special because we can put policies between segments, right? If you look your home router, you can do guest and non-guest, and they don't talk to each other. But with our box, you can put a policy, say, if I'm on the work segment, my PC able to print to my IoT segment where my printer is. But my printer cannot talk to my work segment, right? So this is one of the policies that you can put in there. And we have people using our gold box. They created a segment for kids, right? And they put all kind of control in the kids segment. In that case, like the kids are extremely locked down, but the adults are not. So this is another usage to it.
So Jerry, I have one of those COTOM firewall devices, and I put pfSense on it. I mean, other than the usability factor, right? What are some of the other features that folks should be looking for, versus on those type of platforms where you're making it easy, whereas, on that device, like you have to know how to load the operating system, install it, configure pfSense, right? Which using some of these more home-friendly devices, certainly the usability is much better. But what are some of the other features that you can offer on that type of device that you're currently? I believe you're like in beta for these, the pre-order or something.
We're almost shipping. The gold version is almost shipping, and we also have the little ones, and these are on sale on our websites. Yeah. So in terms of your question, what kind of special? I think. So usability side is definitely something we're focusing on. Remember the story I talked about is where, I need to take out my Cisco stuff out and start messing with it, right? Remember all the CLI commands, remember all the ACL commands. And this is the goal we're trying not to do. We're trying to make security a little bit simpler. So if you guys understand, if you do IT and at work you do a lot of IT, when you go home you probably don't want to do too much IT, right? So this is the key that we build. We build something simpler but not very dumb, right? We build, our stuff is building on top of Linux, right? So it's actually one of the very expandable platforms. You can go inside, you're going to get a Ubuntu Linux, and you're going to get a Bash shell, right? So this is something special about us. It's simple, but not too simple. So in terms of features, I think it's more like integration. How do we put things together that you don't need to spend time to install packages, for example, right? So if you get a firewall, that's, pfSense is very good firewall, but there's a learning curve, and there's a way to put things together, right? You can install different packages, but the issue is actually these things need to talk to each other, right? If you're into security, when things link seamlessly, right? If an event happens, something else happened, then you do a control, right? And you be smart about it. And this is the key of our system. Everything's integrated. If something goes, so for example, if you detect something, the whole system able to react as one system, right? Instead of you have multiple parts that you install, right? So it's more like a system that connects very well and works very simple, but not too simple.
Jerry, along those lines, there are some other solutions on the market that I won't name, but they won't share how their device works. It's basically, it's white, but it's a black box kind of system in terms of you put it on your network, they give you an app, and that's all you get, right? And, for those of us that work in InfoSec, I'm like, do I want to stick something like that on my network? And also, if it causes problems, how do I troubleshoot it? Because it's essentially this closed off system. In your solution, do you can you expand upon some of the technologies underneath and how some of the things work that do things like protection and or taking something off the network or blocking certain things?
So our system is actually open source, and if you go to GitHub/Firewall/Firewall, you're going to see the code running on our boxes there, right? So if you're curious, want to read code, you can go there and just look at it. We use a lot of open source. So our foundation is Linux, right? So we use IP tables, and the core IDS is actually Bro, and I think right now they changed the name to Zeek.
Zeek, yep.
We like it a lot because that system is very good at extracting flows. Remember, most of my team members are from Cisco, so we love net flows. We like to look at flows between the network, right? So we use that technology, and we use bits and pieces of Linux, right? So we have code running on top of Linux to do things. So if you're interested in the code is open source, you can see what it is. And we actually have people go inside, fork that code, and run that piece of code on our devices, right? So we give that flexibility for you to enhance it. If you don't want to, you can actually send us a request, say, we need this feature, and can you please add it? We usually do if it makes sense. Right. So we're pretty open on how we do things, and what kind of things we do with the system.
And again, I find that many folks are really in articles out there are focused on blocking what's coming from the outside in. How are you able to apply rules and enforce them on things from the inside talking out? And what kind of visibility do we get into that?
So if you look at our red and blue units, right, these little ones here, so these two are I call them the outbound firewalls because they connect to your router, right? They take care of all the traffic inside your home. So what's important for us is, if you look at your home, it's actually, if you have a firewall, right, most people think that NAT is a firewall. It's actually not. But in case you think it is, then it is. You have a harder outer shell, right? So you don't really see what's going out from your home. There are two things you see going out is, malware, right? So for example, my camera gets hacked and is somebody streaming stuff outside, right? So this is the visibility. We're going to show you what kind of flows are going out. And the other side is kids, right? Or I think small business will also worry what kind of things that their employee doing. It's the same category, right? How do you control access to information from inside a network? So these are the functions of the outbound firewall, right? The outbound firewall is able to see what's going out. When it sees something abnormal, like our system will warn you. For example, if the camera is at midnight, it's actually sending stuff out, right? A gigabyte out, we're going to send you a warning, hey, this is something going on, that you who's sending stuff out. If the camera is going to play, you can actually control and say, I don't want my cameras to go to certain countries. And then you can enable this region blocks from inside to out, right? You can say, I don't want certain countries to send traffic to my devices or my device to certain countries, that you can do that, right? So we have, because our system sees all the flows, we can manipulate all the different flows, right? You can block them, I think with a gold device, we eventually have QoS as well, the quality of service stuff. It will have even more fun things to do on the home network.
Yeah, I definitely, we hear from folks all the time, that come on the show remotely. Oh, my kids are gaming or doing something, and having that quality of service is a really nice feature as well. But in terms of the device itself, and you said that you can block certain things content-wise. Talk about your ad blocking and how you're achieving that on these devices.
So ad blocking is a very it's a strange topic, right? So people don't like to see ads, and there's two kind of people. Some people just say, okay, remove some ads. There's some people say, I want to remove all ads, right? All the way to remove ads from YouTube. So what our approach to ad blocking is more on the usability side, because when you block an ad, there may be an ad blocker, right? Then there will be ad blocker, right? You can't, this thing will go infinite, and it will drive everybody crazy. So what our approach to ad blocking is making life still work while you can block some ads. We don't block all the ads. We block those that won't cause your experience to be really bad when you're surfing the web or watching YouTube. So the ad blocking is all done on the box itself, so it doesn't send data anywhere. It's quite a simple thing that we can. If you're not anal about ads, this will be a good system, right? So the probability of you running into an issue with ad blocking is a lot less. So this is how we designed it.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you say that, Jerry, because I implemented ad blocking here on our local network for Security Weekly, and it caused issues, like you said, such as, well, if I need to take out a Google ad or something, then I can't get to the site. Like, there's legitimate issues for accessing, certain ad systems, right. And then you have to go manually whitelist, and then you're just constantly in this battle. So do I have to point my DNS at the Firewall device, or is that an option?
So Firewall is it's a inline device, which means it sees all the traffic. So in that case, you don't really need to configure anything. You just need to say, I want ad blocking, and ad blocking will work. It doesn't matter what DNS you pick on your side. The system will override it. It sees traffic. So this is the misconception. So we're not a DNS. We are a DNS system, but we are also an inline device, which means it sees all the flows. And we even have a tutorial where you can go and install T-Shark on it, right? See all the traffic from everywhere. It's definitely interesting. We have a lot of people messing around with our box doing things like that.
And that kind of leads into my next question. And many of us struggle with, we have these services, and I'll pick on YouTube, but this could really be any service, right? Where it has an educational value. It serves a purpose in our home. If we need to fix something, you go look it up on YouTube, right? Kids are actually got assignments from teachers where they had to go watch stuff on YouTube. However, if you are of any level of curiosity, especially a child, and you start hunting around on YouTube, you can find inappropriate content. And this transfers into a lot of these other services and social media networks. Jerry, what's your take on allowing a service but controlling the content within it? Is that on the content provider, or are there things that we can do on our own networks to prevent our kids from stumbling across inappropriate content?
So this question, there's two things to this, right? So if it's a large content provider like YouTube or Google, it's very difficult for any network device to see what the application is doing, right? So sometimes it's actually impossible to see what the kids is Googling or searching on YouTube. So when that happens, we'll rely something like Google Safe Search, which is a very simple thing that provided by Google, YouTube, Bing, I think DuckDuckGo, all these different services, where this thing utilizes DNS to send. If you enable that on our system, we divert all the searches to a different. It's not us who divert it. We change the DNS address to the safe search enabled search engines, right? So when that happens, is Google or YouTube is filtering that we don't. As Firewall at a network layer, we don't do anything, right? Because it's application filtering. So this is on the large providers. And an interesting thing, we actually have adults who's turning this off, turning the safe search on actually, and started sending us nasty things where we're controlling all the different content they can see, and we keep on saying it's not us. You shouldn't be turned on. If you're an adult, you shouldn't be doing safe search, because that actually blocks a lot of things. I think the problem with that is more like people mislabeling their content. So it's sometimes it's not adult or kids friendly. They just mislabel it. So this is the application layer, right? So we do rely on application provided functions for them to do the filter.
But I like that though, Jared, because you're building it into the network layer, right? So even if my kids go turn safe search off to go search for something, basically you're DNS redirecting them so that their searches always go through a safe search from the various providers.
Yes, exactly. So this is the reason, because we're inline, we can rewrite packet and have it to always go to. It doesn't matter what the kid does, right? But kids are smart, by the way. I can tell you 10,000 stories. Kids trying to messing around with controls, right? And we have various other ways to deal with that as well.
Yeah, I find that, everyone parents differently, right? And we're all technologists, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, just give me your phone, right? Like you're confiscated for a while, you're in timeout, like you don't have your phone, right? There's always that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I used to work in InfoSec. In InfoSec, if something goes bad, you tell the employee, "I'm sorry, you're goodbye." With your kid, you can't never do that.
Right? You're stuck with them.
Because it's like we keep on. We all have kids. Like whenever we deal with kids, it's just kind of amazing. You put a control in, they try to break it. You put in another control, they try to break it. You put another one, right? And different age of kids doing different things. I have a story where a 5-year-old figured out how to unplug Firewall. Right? The parents put Firewall there, and he figured out it's like 4 or 5. he actually unplugged the thing, right? It's like physical security compromise by this little kid. Anyway.
Yeah, I have that problem in my house too. My son used a
I had a
crowbar to get
question.
it. Yeah, go ahead, Lee.
So I'm thinking, I mean, you've got a lot of stuff you're doing here. How are you keeping it so that the average user understands it? I'm assuming you're not targeting folks that are spent their lives learning about firewalls here.
So the goal when we create this device is we want to create something simple but not stupid, right? It means we a lot of knobs in there. If you need it, you can get to it. So for example, if you use our app, you can tap a device and get to the device net flows, right? Net flow means like exactly source, destination, port. Is a TCP or UDP going out to where? You can actually get to that. And if you tap on that flow, you can get even deeper information on how many bytes are getting sent out, what time it's sending out, right? And what country is sending it out. You can get more information even on the IP address.
But
right? So,
Jerry, on the flip side of that, I can go hit a button and say block ads, and I'm done, right?
Yes, that's on the simple side, right?
Yeah.
So we provide both a simple button for people, like you guys, IT, you don't want to deal IT on your home, you say block ads, right? But because you guys are IT, you probably want other little things, because block ads, what if I do this? Can I do an exception of things, right? And the upcoming software will have exceptions, right? But you don't have to use exceptions. So that's the reason we make our box simple, but not stupid, right? We still give you all the knobs you ever wanted to do things. And we have not IT, but like people who understand Linux a little bit, dig into our box and actually providing services inside of the box. It's kind of interesting. So that's how we operate. It's kind of a strange segment we're in, right?
Yeah, but I like that though, because you're appealing to both markets. Because Tyler and I can speak to. I don't want to speak for Tyler, but I'll call them out. I've used a Circle device. I've used Q Studio and other services, and then I've also built my own pfSense firewall, right? And I think where I'm really where I'm at right now, especially in this conversation, is I love the solution you're proposing, because it's somewhere in between, right? It's not that completely closed off walled garden where I have no idea what's going on if I need to troubleshoot it, or I'm curious to see how it's working because I've plugged this device into my network, but it's not something that I have to spend a whole bunch of time just on this one particular thing when I got a lot of things I want to accomplish in my home network, for example.
Oh, perfect. That's exactly what we're doing. So we build this device for ourselves. Think about it. If you're working in IT daily, right, you deal with all these different things you need to learn. It's it's just annoying, right? You take this thing to the home. For example, you run a Cisco router at home with CLI. That would drive you crazy, right? You keep on forgetting your CLI. What are my CLI commands? I need to plug in a terminal thing, right, to get this thing running. It is powerful, right? It's nice to have a powerful thing, but the human mind can remember limited amount of things, right? So this is the reason, we're appeal to people, because most of the stuff runs on the phone. Right, you can just tap and do, create a VLAN network using your little phone, which is quite interesting stuff we built, right?
Sorry, Tyler, I know you wanted to chime in here. Oh, Tyler, you muted, sorry.
Oh, Johnny's switching cables.
Yeah, there you go. He's back. What's up, Tyler?
I was curious if this has any downsides that you've seen when running, say, some of the mobile MDM software. Like obviously there's the mobile app software that kind of controls a lot of the stuff on the endpoint, but I've gotten to the point where I'm actually looking at full MDM solutions, and the way in which those MDMs are managed and controlled via the firewall and a lot of the requirements there, I'm running into some issues with some of the lower end firewalls, right? Now, obviously, you go commercial grade, and that provides you some latitude to do some more complex things. But on like a regular Linksys firewall, say for a particular VLAN, that doesn't work out so well.
So MDM depends on what kind of control you want it. I mean, it depends on what kind of control you want the MDM to have, right? Are you looking at MDM controlling on the network, or is it something? Because I used to work on MDM as well for a year and a half.
So a little bit of both. Like that's one of the other things that I'm running into is a lot of the devices, right, are only they're going to be homebound or network bound. Well, other devices are going to have that CDMA or LTE connection on the cellular. So you run into a loss of control for particular MDMs once they leave the network, whereas some of the on-prem or endpoint MDM solutions or applications then can help control once they leave that network. And so I'm running into a little bit of both there.
And so, Tyler, does that bypass the network controls when you put MDM on it and it creates a VPN tunnel out to the cloud sometimes, right, where your MDM is hosted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then those applications on top of that are then leveraging something like, unless you're like stripping TLS, or even if you are looking at and inspecting TLS, those connections are signed and trusted to known source or CDN or Cloudflare, CloudFront. All of these, all the things that you run into as an attacker, all the things that I abuse and leverage to get out of a network, the same thing is happening with my children and or the applications that they're using. Like not to call out or highlight the TikTok story that's going to be, I'm sure, fire for the news segment that we're going to do here in a little while. But these are starting to become real issues and security concerns, especially for some of us that work, maybe on classified projects or highly sensitive IP projects, or we're offensive, right? We have access to very particular networks that have sensitive information on them. And if we can't trust these apps, we have to get segmentation right. And to do that, that's becoming very difficult.
So one thing you can do is actually putting a policy to tunnel traffic always to a known place, right? It means like if I remember correctly, there are policies where you start using network and the network can send the traffic back to a VPN tunnel, right? To always enable a VPN, which means it doesn't matter what kind of media you're at, LTE or Starbucks, but your traffic are always forced back going home. And in your home, not home, but work or home, the VPN endpoints. In that case, you can do filtering there, right? So that's actually a simpler solution where you always send traffic back to your trusted network.
Yeah, controlling the apps on the phone is interesting. Jerry, any plans to provide an app on devices that integrates with Firewall?
Are you talking about MDMs or something that?
Yeah, so having an app on the phone that can enforce policies, right? Some of the controls that we talked about a year or so ago with Chris Hadnaghi was having control of the device so that you can block certain apps, allow certain apps, restrict times, but also get a log of all of the communications via chat. And again, this is you parent how you want to parent. I'm not judging anyone, right? But I'd like to see what my kids are chatting about because I want to look for any red flags. Is someone trying to abduct my children and things like that? And that's what Chris Hadnaghi has a nonprofit organization, Innocent Lives Foundation, that helps track down those bad people. And Chris is the one that recommended that you should look at some of those logs. And for that, I mean, to do that correctly, I think more encompassing, you just need an app on the phone, perhaps, to do some of those controls. Any thoughts about implementing those features for home users?
So for us, very likely we will not touch the application side, right? So if you look at security, there's application layer security, there's networking layer security. So for us, it's more on the network side. If we start touching the operating system or the app side, that's probably something related to MDM or something related to put a middleman in one of the apps, right? That's something we haven't done it before. We're all a bunch of networking people.
Gotcha.
We do stuff on the network. It's possible, right? Because you can start unwrapping HTTPS and sniffing people's traffic. That's like some of the enterprises doing. That's also possible, but that's not on our radar as well because we really hate messing with encryption, right? Messing with encryption is bad, and that's how we perceive our us not touching encryption. Unless people come with a lot of money for us to do it.
No, I love your answer. It's awesome. Stay in your lane. That's fine. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, having done this is sweet.
Hold on.
It's okay, Tyler. It's okay.
Doug, then Tyler.
Doug?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. So if you put so on that layer 7 thing, do I put like a layer 7 proxy service in front of Firewall, or do I put it behind it in the individual segments, or both? I mean, I'm just sort of curious. If I want to do what Paul's talking about, the layer 7. I mean, and I do like that. I love the network control. I love the granularity of Firewall, but I also like the idea that you're talking about, which is very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've set those up for companies and schools.
Mm-hmm.
Very challenging thing to do, but it also
challenging
is
just from a privacy policy perspective.
It is, and so I was just really almost a technical question. Would I put that behind your device because it's, or would I put it in front of it?
Actually, you can do it two ways. One is basically strictly putting that piece of code on the phone.
Okay.
Right? So things like that piece of code will be interacting with the operating system on the phone, either Android or iOS, to capture things. And that's linked to the MDM as well, because I don't think Apple will allow people to insert these things because they become a spyware. Right? So there's a fine demarcation of spyware versus something useful for kids. So first is inserted into the phone itself. Second one is doing stuff on the network. So doing stuff on the network, because a lot of transmissions are HTTPS encrypted, a proxy has to be there to decrypt the HTTPS and re-encrypt it, right? And to do that, you have to mess around with certificates, which means you need to put a certificate in people's phones. I think enterprise do this already, right? So if your phone has a strange certificate on it, that means like when you send stuff, you may be trusting to an intermediate proxy that decrypts your data, look at it, and re-encrypt it and send to somebody else, right? So this is the proxy story. So where you put into Firewall, you actually, if we ever build one, it will be inside the data path in Firewall. It will intercept HTTPS, right, the data stream, and use the certificate to decrypt it, right? But yet we have to insert the certificate into the phone or the path, which means that's another MDM thing, right? So MDM will force a certificate on your phone. You accept it, then somebody in the middle can intercept the traffic, right? So there's a few things need to be done. It's going to be complex for home, and that's the reason we said that we're not going to touch that stuff. Enterprise can do it because they own everything, right? For us to do it, it's like we don't want to have the private key that decrypts your data. It's just annoying to us. I don't sleep well if I have encryption keys on my hands I have to deal with.
Yeah, and there's performance implications for sure in that.
Lots of performance.
Yes.
Decryption, encryption. It's. I think our box right now can do 3 gigabit. If you do encryption, decryption, go back to 100 megabit.
Yeah. But now you also have a VPN capability in your platform. Tell us what that looks like, because people are always asking about VPN. How do I get a VPN? How do I protect my traffic going out? How do I gain remote access to my network? Right? Those are two different things that I think sometimes people get confused about as well.
Yeah, that's why I love talking to you guys. You understand VPN. So the VPN we have is exactly like you said, is how do you get clean network when you're outside the home, right? So first feature we have is called a VPN server. It's nothing but a VPN, open VPN server. We made everything extremely simple. So if you're a Starbucks, you can always VPN back home, and anybody in the middle cannot look at your stuff, right? You can always do that. Or you're at work, you're surfing to places that your workplace don't want you to do, you can actually VPN back to home to do it, right? So this is more like provide a clean network for you to work, right? So this is the VPN server. So a lot of our, we know a lot of small businesses actually use this because of COVID-19. They buy our little boxes and just create VPN server at their work, right? It's not expensive and it runs on your own network. So everything is pretty simple. And we also have another feature called a VPN client. This is more for people who want to tunnel their traffic to somewhere else, right? So this is the case where most people understand what VPN is today, right? In my days, VPN is, encryption. Today it's like you're trying to watch Netflix from another country, or trying to hide your traffic from your ISPs, right? So we also have this VPN client feature where you can use your third-party VPN, and we can tunnel traffic, any device in your home through that tunnel, even that device can't install any VPN client, right? So we have both features.
Oh, so I don't have to install a VPN client on my NVIDIA Shield, right?
Yes.
It just goes through Firewall, and Firewall does the connection. Now, can I tell it which traffic that I want to encrypt over VPN and which ones I don't?
That's something we're not implementing now, because consumers don't really need this feature. But on the Firewall Gold, eventually we're going to build the PBR, policy-based routing. So simple policy-based routing, not the one.
Not manual on a Cisco command line policy-based routing.
On. we want ACLs. Come on.
We're trying to avoid that. Not the PBR that policy-based routing language. I mean, I remember there's actually a language for more complex policy, right? So we are going to build something for people to manage their traffic to VPN. So that will come to the Firewall Gold, which the Gold is a router, so we can do a lot more things on it. That's
awesome. Jerry, what do you recommend for? I've run through the gamut, right? Like I can buy Cisco gear like on eBay, 3500 series switches, right? Or lately I've implemented the SG series. You can go Linksys, D-Link, Netgear is kind of the tier beyond that. What do you recommend? Like when people come to you and say, what do I need in my home in terms of like switches? What's your recommendation?
So switching, you don't need anything complex, right? So the thing we test with the Firewall Gold, for example, it's a router feeding into a switch, and what we do is actually we use the cheapest Netgear or I think some TP-Link as well, and that understand VLANs, right? If you want into those things, we also have people in our team who's into 10G networking, right? In that case, if we also get a cheap Netgear, or cheap Linksys, or what's the other one?
D-Link.
D-Link. Not D-Link.
Oh, come on. TP-Link.
If you want to, the managed switch, try to get the simplest one, because most people don't understand how to configure a managed switch. And if you get a Cisco one, it's going to be extremely loud, by the way, very loud. It's very hard to configure. If something broken, you probably need to relearn stuff. And that's something we
that's where I'm at right now. I like being in that place, though, and that's why I asked you for people that friends and family that aren't in IT. What would we recommend? Yeah,
because we tend to overcomplicate things.
Yeah. No, I agree. More questions for Jerry? Anyone?
Well, I've been having fun just going through his site, looking at what's compatible and how to make it work with things like mesh and some other stuff. Looks like you guys had to do a lot of research to get all these configurations figured out. Did you do that yourself, or did you use the community, or how'd you get all that compatibility worked out?
So we've been around for a while. The story with us is we tried to get, in 2016, we're trying to get VC money to build this company, and VCs don't understand cybersecurity, right? So we actually went to crowdfunding. So we went to Kickstarter, went to Indiegogo, and this is in 2017. And later we built rest of our product both through Indiegogo. So all of our products are built from crowdfunding. And by going through crowdfunding, we have a lot of early adopters. So they love technology, they love the stuff we build. So they are willing to work with us to fix all the problems we have, right? So you have these very, very good customers who worked with us to build this list. And that's why a lot of people love us, because we build things and they tell us to build things. We build it for them. They tell us, what if you do it this way, right? And that's how our company gets started, right? Is through crowdfunding, through customers, not through VCs.
Something to be said for listening to your customers, right?
Sorry?
I said something to be said for listening to your customers.
Yes. We have to listen to them, because when you go to crowdfunding, they give you ideas, and they're your investors essentially, right? So if we don't build stuff for our customers, it doesn't make sense. In our company, we only listen to customers because we don't have VCs on our back.
That's awesome. Well, Jerry, I just have 5 questions, which is a silly little thing that we do here on Security Weekly. We ask you 5 completely random questions. And we ask this of all of our guests that come on the first time. So are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly?
Sure.
3 words to describe yourself.
Impatient, annoying, and I love technology. No, technology, annoying, and impatient. Yeah.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Cisco picks.
I don't know how to answer that. It's I don't know, flamethrower. I like to play with that. Yeah.
I like that. If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
What would the title be? Well, can I pass that, because I can't think of anything?
That's
You can phone a friend.
Phone a friend. You'll have to come back and give us the answer to that one. Jerry, in the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
What is that?
It's popular in Europe.
First? I don't know what it is, but first.
Jerry, choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
Thanks, Lee.
Let's see, celebrities. I can't think of any celebrities.
It could be people from history, can be friends, people in cybersecurity, people not in cybersecurity.
My mind is blank. You guys stumped me.
Test tube, baby.
That's it.
Yeah.
Jeff got it. Jerry, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly.
Thank you very much. I mean, I thank you for being IT with me. So I really love talking to you guys.
Awesome.
Whenever I say you understand, whatever you say, I understand. Great, thank you.
I love that we speak the same language of tech, and I tell you what, that firewall of gold.
I know, it's calling to me.
It is.
I'm sitting here going, I should buy.
Where has it been all my life?
I know.
Is what we're saying.
Pre-order the gold one now.
We've been really working really hard to try to get shipping this thing.
I kind of want one.
The problem with the COVID-19 is the problem. It's difficult to ship hardware, but we're almost there. We're shipping in 7 days.
Oh, it's shipping in 7 days?
Yeah, I'm pre-ordering it right after this.
Yeah,
Okay,
we already need
I
that
think-
promotion code to get overnight.
That's right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We don't want discount. We just want overnight shipping. We need it now. Jerry, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. With that, we'll take a short break. Come back with our next guest. Stay tuned.